Hello, everyone. I know you're invigorated from that last session. Let's take our seats and let's bring this energy into this upcoming event. Yes, I heard a woo. I love that. We've got a special take two now with Antonio Michael Downing, author of Saga Boy and the forthcoming Black Cherokee. Please welcome him. Alongside Yomi Ṣode, author of Manorism. Please welcome Yomi. They will be in conversation with the brilliant Alake Pilgrim. Please enjoy.
So let me jump right in and introduce our authors. Antonio Michael Downing spends his time writing books, singing songs, and trying to make his grandma, Miss Exceli Theodora Downing, proud. He was named by the 2018 Taylor Prize as one of Canada's best emerging authors. His acclaimed memoir, Saga Boy, was nominated for the Toronto Book Award and the Speaker's Book Award in 2021. Black Cherokee, his debut novel, will be released in North America by Simon & Schuster in 2025. He writes and performs music as John Orpheus and is host of The Next Chapter, a book discussion show on Canada's national broadcaster, CBC Radio. Blending mythology and memory, Saga Boy follows the author from American community in South Trinidad to Canada, New York, the UK, and more, a young Black immigrant's vibrant personal metamorphosis. Yomi Ṣode is an award-winning Nigerian-British writer. He is a recipient of the 2019 Jerwood Compton Poetry Fellowship, shortlisted for the Brunel International African Poetry Prize 2021 and Arts Foundation Awards 2024. His acclaimed one-man show, Court, toured nationally to sold-out audiences, including at the Brighton Festival, Roundhouse Camden, and the Battersea Arts Centre. He has written award-winning and celebrated librettos and plays and is a mentor to young writers. Yomi's debut collection, Manorism, was shortlisted for the T.S. Eliot Prize in 2022, the Rathbones Folio Prize 2023, and was adapted for the stage at the South Bank Theatre Centre. His debut novel, The Interpreter, has been acquired and will be published by Viking. In poems exploring family, survival, generational trauma, and the complexities of belonging, Manorism is an examination of the lives of Black British men and boys through Yomi's interweaving of Yoruba, English, French, prayer, protest, memory, art, and imagination. Join me in welcoming them again, Antonio and Yomi. I'm so honored. So we're going to get right into readings.
Check, check. Test, test. Are we here? Good afternoon. They give us a tough act to follow, but we're never afraid. Will there be any stars in my crown, when at evening the sun goeth down? And though I lay myself in the mansion of rest, will there be any stars in my crown? Pylori was my everything. Pylori, 3 delicious syllables that ruled my life. I was 5, and if I had as much as little as 15 cents, I would buy pylori. A fluffy, golden, deep-fried ball of dough that was crunchy on the outside and chewy in the middle. I lived in New Grant, a village in the south of Trinidad, or down south, as we would say. It sat between wide, muddy rivers full of crocodiles, thick tropical wilderness, and fields upon fields of sugarcane. The yellow and brown two-story building where we learned was called New Grant Anglican School, and it had been established in the year 1900. To the front, there was a paved asphalt area where we played netball, rounders, and hopscotch in our neat uniforms. In the field next to that, we dashed about, made believe, and whenever possible, yelled as loudly as we could. Next to this field was a small shop of wonders. They sold pickled red mango, coconut sugar cakes, sticky peppery anchar, and of course, pulori. It was pretty much neutral in taste, but it was served with spicy mango chutney or sticky sweet tamarind sauce on brown wax paper. Pulori was my favorite thing. One day I had bought 3 or 4 and was fixated on inhaling them while waiting to cross the main road. I was straining not to get any chutney on my khaki uniform. Cars roared by while I stood, my mouth wet with wanting. I was captivated by the mesh pattern inside the dough balls, by the heat of the wax paper and the green mango chutney. Just as I looked up, a 20-seat maxi taxi dashed right before my nose. My nostrils burned with diesel. A drunk on the other side of the road staggered backwards, his eyes bulging like guavas. "You go get killed one day." But in Trini, an alcoholic was a rumbo. Everybody drank rum. And I knew from the way big people talk that you never listen to a rumbo. So I finished my pulori, which was never puloris, even if you had several. And I looked both ways before crossing to my street, Monkey Tongue Road, 3rd Branch, which at that point was the only place in the universe that I knew.
Àdúrà, màmá mi, ọmọ mi, mo gbàdúrà fún ẹ lónìí ní orúkọ Jésù. Ọlọ́run á lànà fún ẹ ní ilé àlàwọ̀ funfun. Bí ó tilẹ̀ jẹ́ pé tó dúdú ni ẹ́, lórúkọ Jésù, ire tiẹ̀ á wá. Bí ó ti wù kí ló lè tó, ohun tí ó jẹ́ kò tiẹ̀ kọjá ẹ̀. Ìwọ àti ìdílé rẹ kò ní rí ikú òjijì. Bíbélì wípé àwa la jèrè kèfèrí. God that makes his way for the Israelites on the Red Sea will make way for you where there's no way. Amen.
I didn't even feel like I should clap after that. Just say amen. But to set the stage a little bit, before we get into the music, obviously, the language, obviously, I want to talk about how both your novels connect and show up displacements. Yeah, displacement in Yomi's case, going as far back as the Door of No Return in Ouida, Benin, all the way forward to being a Nigerian British man in England, who some British people feel comfortable saying, go back to Africa. In Antonio's case, displacements that include psychic, physical displacements, but really a major, major displacement from Monkey Town in South Trinidad, where you are the descendant of Americans, that company of African American freedmen who the British enlisted to fight against the Americans in the after the American Revolutionary War. And being moved suddenly after your grandmother's passing from there to Canada, to a tiny remote part of Canada where your aunt worked with the Ojibwe people. So we have these displacements, physical, and we'll get into the others. But can you tell me why you chose not to just craft these displacements in terms of immigration, but also link them to like colonial roots, deeper roots than just immigrants?
No, go ahead, you got it.
Firstly, thank you all for joining this afternoon. It's been such a spiritual process since I've been in Trinidad. It's my first time. It's first time at broadcast, first time in Trinidad, and I think I feel it. I'm shaking even as I'm talking, you know? So I was born in Nigeria. I arrived in England when I was like 9, and it was snowing. And I was like, what is this? I was so confused. And I say this every time, but I don't think anyone believes me. It was like around in Peckham in the area, and it was snowing. And we were waiting for my aunt to come back from work. And I'm with my mum, and I'm looking. I'm very confused at how cold this is. And then, of course, when it snows and it gets on skin, it melts. So I'm thinking it's acid and I'm gonna die. So a lot of this isn't making sense because it's just not my landscape. And I didn't really speak English either. So fast forward to in the process of writing this book, the very first thing you're met with is Yoruba. And it's as much political as it is cultural. When I done a workshop and there was a young Nigerian girl that ran up to me afterwards, she's just like, uncle. I'm like, Yomi's fine. She's like, I can't wait to show my mum. I can't wait to show her because I'm Yoruba. And I guess for me, that's where it gets important, you know, because as I've kind of slowly realized that I've kind of grew up in England, the idea of mother tongue almost not being as priority and losing that is like, how can I reclaim this in this way in the reading? It's very rare that I read out in Yoruba, but I think it was for the purpose of being here for this festival. It's very important to me that I read this aloud. Do you see what I mean? And then immediately we go into the door of no return, which as in ancestry and thinking about the journey of in Benin, in Wira, there is the monument of the door of no return, in which what oversees the monument is the Atlantic Ocean, to which, you know, in the 1600s, without getting too much into detail. And hopefully I'll read that poem at some point later. But for me, it was important to start the book essentially with that poem, because what I'm trying to work in the poem is a type of fear that was unlocked, that generationally permeated through different generations of black people cross-board post that point. And it's a term that I coined called anaphia, which essentially I'm just working with the idea of a toxin that kind of cracks and releases through the system in which you can't undo. And we're following this journey of anaphia throughout the book in relation to fear, anxiety, generationally in terms of our elders. And I wanted to start it off with this poem in particular and journey through that, because it's important to actually list a type of history as we move into more modern situations in the book as we carry on. But I'll just stop there.
Yeah, well, does anyone know the slogan of Boca's Literary Fest 2025? Yeah, well, if that were true, it wouldn't have been 12 years since I've been to Trinidad, much to my mother's chagrin. When I lived in New Grant down south, I've been having this flashback of being here in Port of Spain, because this is very much not the Trinidad that I grew up in, right? And when we live there, and I see my older brother in the house, I see my younger brother in the house, I see my nephew who's never been to Trinidad before ever, He's 3 days in. He's 3 days and 17 doubles in. But my Aunt Joan used to come down and she used to say, in Canada, we drive on ice. And we would laugh. If you see laugh, because we're like, Auntie Joan, ice is in the fridge. If you take it out, it's going to melt. So we thought she was playing with us. And in 1986, it was an eventful year for me. I passed for presentation college. And to this day, nobody from that little country school has passed for presentation. So it made me an instant legend. And then I got there and realized everybody's smart. So being the smart man was no longer a stick I could rely on. Grandmother died. She used the last bit of energy she could to go to beg for the little piece of money to buy the shirt to send me the presentation. Because when she went to the regular shop, they said, Madam, we don't have that. Nobody ever passed for that. And she was so proud. She took me around like a show. She said, this is the boy. And, I'm sitting there going, can I have another biscuit, please? And then she died. And so me and that young man over there, the only other person in all of Bocas who walking around wearing sunglasses is my older brother. I asked a question 3 days ago. They say, you with the sunglasses. That is my brother. And suddenly we were in a place where we went to the coldest part of Canada, Northern Ontario. The wind is howling in the bluffs. There's wolves running through the trees. There's bears at the dump when you go to dump your trash. And the most fascinating thing for me were icicles. Ice that did not melt. And I call that my origin story. Because in a way, I've been trying to pick up those pieces ever since. And this book, Saga Boy, is probably, hopefully, the crowning sort of movement of that process for myself. And, I wish I could have, there's so many poets here, so many PhDs. I listened to Mr. Brown this morning, and it was brilliant. It was like going to church. But, sometimes if you're smart, you figure life out, or you figure out what you're going to do, and then you go do it. That's called having a plan. Sometimes you go and do it, and then you recognize it as it's happening to you. That's called growing up poor. So I have to admit, I didn't know what my intentions were when I started this book. I hit a point in my life where I was trying on futures like jackets, and I couldn't figure out why none of them fit. And then a novel idea hit me, which was that until you make peace with your past, you cannot walk into your future. And that was the purpose that this book was made, very much out of necessity. Right? And so what I can say is that in going back into it, I was trying to figure out myself. I was being like, well, you live in this life. You've been an adult for a while. Things are happening, but life is only moving one direction. And it's a privilege to be able to stop time and look backwards. And I had never done that. So when I went back to figure myself out, I was kind of like, well, who are these people, these parents that had me, but I never had them? Who are they? And why did they drop me off 6 months old? My brother will tell you the story. He was 3. Mom pulled up in the car, the taxi, the engine never shut off. She walked to the door, handed me over the threshold to my grandmother, never said hi to him, hopped back in the car and gone. So who are these people? And so in figuring out who they are, I had to figure out how they were raised and who were their parents. And then inevitably, you start asking, well, what are these West African people doing on an island off of South America anyway? And that's when, as a grown man, I understood the story you told, the company villages. They were slaves. The War of 1812 broke out, or what the Americans call the Second War of Independence. And the British, you know the British is always smart, man, right? They say, hey, run away and fight for us and we'll give you your freedom. And then they signed a truce and they didn't know what to do with us. So the governor of Trinidad wrote to the Queen and said, hey, we have lots of land, plenty land, send them here. We're underpopulated. And they sent us, but slavery hadn't been abolished till 1832, so 20 years later. So what they did was, they took the company of soldiers and they made villages. And to this day, if you go down there, there's one road in and one road out, because they didn't want us to leave. And we gained a reputation for three things: for being a little bit crazy, very resilient, and very spiritually inclined. And so my grandmother was born in 3rd Company. She buried in 5th Company. These are the literal names of the companies of soldiers. To this day, these are the names of the villages. And we're from a village called New Grant, which I didn't know growing up, but what I found out was we were 2nd Company. And the land they gave us was so impossible that we had to write to the governor in Port of Spain for a new grant of land. And that is the etymology of that. Yes. Mm-hmm. And so this is me discovering that my history, my parents' history, my people's history, but I wish I could say I intended that. What I intended to do was to not go crazy. And so I wish I could speak with such clarity as many of these illustrious PhDs and poets who I've come to know and call my friends over the last 3 days, but I'm not that person.
Well, that's really, really interesting that you almost found your way and stumbled your way into your genealogies. So, Yomi, on that note, your book of poetry does something very interesting as well. It follows family and some of those cracks between generations of, say, older Nigerian, your mom, big mommy, and your uncles, and how they handle things like grief, how silence, which also connects to Antonio's book, how silence is almost like a mode of operation, to survive. And the cracks between that causes sometimes between them and younger generations. But your book also expands the elegies and includes Black British men and women who have survived and suffered from various forms of violence, whether from Grenfell Tower to other forms of police violence. Why was it important to you to link genealogy, family, and other stories in that way?
Just for context, so the title is Manorism. So the actual term mannerism, I was doing some research and I kept on coming across, because I was really interested in behavioral traits. Why is it at work, Trevor in marketing or the CEO might say something, I'm like, okay, cool, nice one, mate, or whatever it is, my language changes. When I'm with my mum, my body changes. When I'm with my friends, it's always as if my body is physically shifting every single time, almost on autopilot. And then I question myself, like, why did that happen? What happened there to make me sit upright? What was that notion that made me just change? Code switch, essentially, automatically. So that was the research, and I kept on coming across these paintings, and I later found out in the research that the term mannerism is actually coined in Italy. There was a set of Mannerist painters. I can get all geeky with that. I'm going to save you from it. It was really interesting stuff. But then I was like, there is the term mannerism, but there's another term innately from the neighborhood in which I grew up with my group of friends, the manor, the block, that we've grown up in, that the DNA is almost innately in us. We can move to the house of houses, but we will know not to tell the neighbor. We'd be very mindful as to how much we're talking about this house, I could go to a nightclub with my white friend, for example, and I'm looking at all the exits just in case, because I know it's not as simple to just go into a dance without the idea of something kicking off. But my friend might just want to buy drinks. We live in two different situations. If I go to a restaurant and I'm with my partner, I'm sitting and I'm watching the door. I can't sit with my back to the door. These are certain mannerisms that I just need to be aware of almost immediately, because I don't want to be caught off on a. That's why the title is the way it is, because it's not a mannerism to a European white kind of lens. It's a certain manner, as in the block, the area which you grew up in, that doesn't necessarily ever leave you. As much as you might think you might fly to here, grow in your career, whatever it is, it's almost like the closest thing to like a spider sense. Do you see what I mean? But for black folks. You just know that your name on the job interview, they might think a certain way. You can sense if someone's about to touch your hair, like, yo. You know when they look too long? They're looking a bit too long. You know what's about to happen. They're just looking. They're just looking, and you just move like this. And the thing is, this is the shame in it, because this is the part that hurts, is because you move because you're saving yourself from the violence. And then the idea that, you know, you're seeing the people, you see the bag that's clutched, you see the people that cross the road, and you swallow it every time, you swallow it. But what we're not taking into consideration, especially as black people, is what damage that does to the body when you internalize the violence on a day-to-day basis. This is why it's important to be like, we need to really look into weathering. We need to look into what this does to the body. We need to look at blatant violence. That's the gaslight that you see it. But what do you mean you don't see it? I see it, I experience it, but you're trying to tell me that I'm not seeing it. You're mad. But at the same time, it's the idea of how do I explore this? And when it came to ancestry, into family, so the third section, I feel like I'm talking a lot. The third section of the book explores my grand aunt, my grandma's sister. We call her Big Mummy. She died of cancer in 2019, on my birthday actually, December. But she kept the cancer, she didn't say that she had cancer. She kept it away from us as a family for 2 years. It was only her son who knew, that was taking her to the hospital appointments. And for any elders, especially within my family, is that thing of, but I didn't want to worry you. And I'm like, I know, I have white friends, families, they dish their business every day. But why, I don't want to speak in the we, but it's just experiencing it as a family to be like, for 2 years you've had cancer. Your whole family's been, for 2 years you've had cancer. Your whole family's there to support you. And you didn't say nothing. So we got to just live this last 6 months with her, you know? And it's just that kind of generational thing of secrecy and within the community, they don't want to worry the younger. And I'm like, why is this the case? So I think, again, it's something to explore in the book in that form, you know? But
they always say, first of all, my Aunt Joan, who features very much in this book, didn't tell anybody, 10 years. She didn't tell anyone. She died 2 Christmases ago. Didn't tell a soul. We thought she was there because of a fall. We didn't know she fell because she had metastasized breast cancer lesions on her back. But it's always the secrecy, right? Is always, we got to protect you from that truth. But when you come to find out, more times they're protecting themselves. And
interestingly, my grandma passed 3 weeks ago. So my grandma sensed, she's like, is she okay? Talking about Big Mommy. This was like in 2020. Like, is she okay? It was like a feeling. She felt something. But her daughters, she got my mom's got 6 sisters, but her daughters, they didn't tell her. Because they were worried that heartbreak would affect her and she would pass. So selfishly, they kept it from her because they did not want to lose their mum. Right. So and this was like a real conflict with me and the aunties and my mom. Like, I think she deserves to know that Big Mommy is not here anymore. So sadly, she passed not knowing. But it's that conflict of that, like, I'm fully in this weird conflict of the parallels of why they didn't want to tell her. But the same thing with this, how the secrecy, protection works within the confines of families, you know?
Yes. And both your books really deal with that and almost serve as a counterpoint and a balm and a contention with that idea that secrecy is protection, which is a very, I'm interested to know that it's also in West African culture somewhere, because it's very much in West Indian culture. We can attest to that. Secrecy is protection, silence is protection.
Did you say
it's not.
That it's not.
It's not.
It's not.
Not at all.
It's not. In fact, if we, Alicia was talking about erasure earlier today, removing the not talking about it, and even to the point of removing the language to talk about it, is just multiplying. It's a force multiplier on the hurt that it delivers to you. In fact, we can see it in American politics right now. They're removing a lot of the means of talking about the things because they would like it to hurt you in silence. So as Audre Lorde, another person who was eulogized from this stage today, your silence will not protect you.
And so you creating words, creating language, you drawing on the Trinidadian Creole, you bringing in your Yoruba to speak to the French and the English in your book, is clearly speaking out into those silences in so many ways. But you all also do that a lot through music. And I mean, even to tie back to the idea of home, since home is not a foregone conclusion for so many of us, what is home, where is home, how do we make home again? Music seemed to be a major way that you all and the characters in your story, the people in your story, made themselves feel at home again in some way. Can you talk a little bit about that, the role of music?
I think Olive Senior, again, I have so much Bocus in my head, but she said that from this stage. She said, my home is my head. I would take it one step further. I would say my home is my heart. And the quickest way, we have doorways into that space. Food, like Pelori, for example, the food that, that we're bonded with. But that's not just us. Everybody does that. Everybody does that, Egusi soup, you know what I mean?
100%.
Jollof rice, like everybody does that. But for me, because my grandmother was so musical and so lyrical, the two biggest things she taught me was, number one, how to sing, number two, how to read. And because her eyes were bad, so about 3.5, 4 years old, she would say, boy, go and get the Bible from back there, sitting on the veranda, and I'll come with the Bible. And she only wanted to read Psalms, Proverbs. Like, Psalms are literally songs. That's what the word means, right? And so lyricism and music became my way of accessing the safety that she provided for me, because she was my Garden of Eden. And after that, emotionally, I've lived off the land to this moment. And so the music just sort of takes me into the space of safety, of nourishment, of memory and connectedness and community that really, since she died, I have never really felt any other way.
Music has always been in and around me. I remember when I was young, my mom used to tell me how whenever Fela Kuti was on TV, I used to always run to my room. Or because I'm any kind of I don't know if anyone can watch Nollywood and stuff, but Nollywood used to always scare the living daylights out of me. There are guys that will be standing next to the wall, and then you just hear some synths just happening, and pew, they're gone. I'm like, yo, how did that happen? I'm out of here. I'm gone. But Fela, she always used to say that you always used to, whenever Fela was playing, you always used to run. And I was like, and then years later, I get to understand because my mom always played it in the house. I grew up mainly in relation to poetry and spoken word. I grew up mainly in the live music scene. So there are different spots in London where some of the greatest folks that you might have heard, whether it's Khalees, whether it's Omar, they might just finish a show at Jazz Cafe and they're gonna pop into here to do BVs for the open micers, like who are singing. So they're just like, I just want to vibe. So they'll just pick up a mic and just join in a kind of random rendition of Jill Scott. And I'm like, how is Khalees just doing BVs? Like, this don't make no sense. And then imagine that. So if you see the open micer who's the singer, and you got Khalees doing background vocals to your song, it's like the most random thing. Right. But then poetry was part of that whole situation as well. So when it came to the book, interestingly, the formalities in writing a book, you can get very lost in the politics of what is proper poetry.
Right.
And like, and form. Like proper poetry and proper form, and give thanks that, you know, doing some research on nation language, kind of being a bit more tuned to my own kind of cultural landscape of friends, it became a real space to be a bit unapologetic in just writing what I know, you know, but also writing it within a sonnet or a ghazal. So I'm very aware of the forms in the Shakespearean kind of stuff, but I'm just gonna add a lot of me and my toolkit that of my culture, me, along the way, which jarred a lot of systems, because it's almost like, how are you able to add, whether it's grime or Afro beats, within what essentially is a Shakespeare, kind of like Shakespearean sonnet or a ghazal or whatever it is. And I had fun in just pissing off some old folks, man. Like, I'm not gonna lie. I had fun to just troll. Like, if there was like,
yo,
I had fun. There was
this
some.
My brother for real, man.
Especially,
let me ask you something. Sorry to interrupt you. What do you think the name of the song I wanted to sing to end tonight is called?
I have no idea.
It's called Fela Wo.
Oh shit.
No, but also.
This is what we got, even like with the Caravaggio stuff as well. So the book kind of explores, I don't know if anyone's aware of Caravaggio, the Italian painter. So the book explores this guy. So I kind of be like, Caravaggio to the art world is like the Tupac of hip hop type thing, or Lewis Hamilton or like the Lewis Hamilton of F1 type thing. But to my knowledge, I don't know about Tupac, but to my knowledge, Lewis Hamilton didn't kill no one. Tupac, he might punch up some people. Tupac might have had some moments. Caravaggio absolutely killed someone. And not only did he kill someone, this guy fled to Malta. And when he got caught, he was presented like, you can either go to jail, or we can commission you to paint for the papacy. I swear to God, I was invited to the Louvre off the back of this book. In the Louvre right now is the very painting that spared this guy jail. Can I even sniff or sneeze without the police trying to send me to jail on any given random time or moment? So for me, it was really interesting to explore the type of grace that is provided, because nothing's changed from the 1600s to now, where we're dealing with like a Trump or Liam Neeson chasing a white man down with a baseball bat down the road. Nothing's changed between that time, but for black people, for black men specifically, the argument was it's not the same parallels in terms of power. So for me, all of these things was really important to explore in the book, you know?
Yo, that's beautiful, first of all, and I feel like, same for me. It's like, you know, I have a degree in English literature from the University of Waterloo, so I know the canon. I read my Beowulf and my Marlowe and my Shakespeare, but it just never satisfied, because there's something in it that's missing. It's an essence, it's a spirit, and it's the rhythm, it's the cadence, it's the melody. And to this day, when I write like that. Like, I'm just trying to sing. I'm just trying to sing. I don't see, you know, a difference between the two things, because meaning can be denoted by the words, but it can also be connotated by the tone and the pitch and the timbre and the syntax, right? And so, yeah, I live for that. I live for that. And that's why I've lived much of my life in the world of music just as much in the world of literature. So I feel that, and it's very much part of how I see writing, to the point where the more I fuse music with literature, the stronger my own voice has emerged.
It may seem like an interesting segue. I see that. But I cannot, I'm going to open up to the audience in a second, but I can't do that without, you mentioned black men specifically. Because, of course, in many ways, we've been talking about various forms of blackness today, diversities of experience, connections and experience across blackness. But let's talk black men specifically, then I'll open it up to the audience. What do you think popular narratives of black men miss, or even what black women who love black men may miss about being a black man, what that feels like?
I can only give you an example. I think there are different lenses in how this is viewed. When my cousin called me to say that the hospice is asking for everybody to come in because they're thinking today might be the day that Big Mummy might pass, I told him immediately to leave work and I'll meet him in the hospice. And I got off the phone, I called my mum, I told my mum, we need to all go to the hospice. I came off the phone and I was on that bus. It was so busy on that bus, and I started crying on that bus. I was crying. And no one on that bus asked if I was okay. And this is the interesting thing, was I have been on several public transport. I've seen dogs cry. You know where I'm going with this? I'm seeing if the dog was crying from here, there'll be someone from back there to be like, are they okay? Some might even walk up and stroke the dog. Some might even not only stroke the dog, but speak to the owner to be like, oh, what's happening? I've seen people pay more attention to dogs than they did me. I had no tissue. I was wearing a leather jacket, I'm wiping, I'm crying. And interestingly, this was me for the best part of maybe 5 minutes. And I think around me, I just sensed that nobody's gonna ask me anything. And what happened? I zipped up, wiped, done. And I say this to say that, there are several young black boys out there who offer this window. And if we miss that window, that's it. If the window opens like that, it's the opportunity for us to absolutely rip that window up to be like, are you okay? Do you see what I mean? And more than likely what happens is that window, that tiny crack opens like this, which is the vulnerability and the point in which we need to have a conversation. And if that's not done, it closes because they're thinking, I don't want to be heard. No one wants to hear what I'm going through. So I don't know if that necessarily answers anyone's question, but I came off that bus like nobody cares. I came off that bus like I have to figure this. I have to figure it out. I'm the eldest of the next generation. I have to go in there and I have to present like this isn't affecting me. And I wonder whether if someone asked me, are you okay? And if I said what was going on, how the rest of that day would have gone, So that's all. I hope that to some degree answers, Yeah.
Yeah, I feel, the great myth of masculinity is that we're invulnerable. Yeah. We're not even supposed to have feelings, less much bad ones. And, not to complain, because it's not like women don't carry so much, but I think it does a disservice to us. And I can tell you, if you meet a 10-year-old boy, what's more affectionate and more loving and more kind and fun than a 10-year-old boy? You meet that same boy when he's 20. 15 really. And it's gone. And I can tell you this, we talk a lot about patriarchy and masculinity, but the truth is, if I've been told in a toxic way, be a man, in a way that's intended to shame me 10 times, probably 7 of them are women. So, that is all.
Yomi's going to, so much more we could talk about. Can we leave it on that note? No, Yomi, read your poems and then questions from the audience.
I just wanted to thank you so much for this again, man. It's a busy space. I'm so thank you. We're so very thankful for this. I just want to share 2 poems because, was it one? One poem? Yes, one poem. Let's go one poem. Actually, yeah, and this involves, I'm going to do this because I like the idea of participation and everyone joining in. Is that all right? So this is Ghazal. One of the biggest anxieties that I realized occurred within the Nigerian kind of community was when Damilola Taylor died. I don't know if anyone's aware of Damilola Taylor. He was unfortunately kind of caught up in a situation while he was coming home from school, went to the library, got caught up in the staircase, got stabbed in the thigh, and he bled out and he passed. A sad story, but for the Nigerian community, it was almost like, oh, whoa. Because the idea is you kind of migrate, you go to this country, you want to raise your children and be the best that they can be, and the possibilities of you losing your child in a country outside of your own was a real fear. And this ghazal is to the mothers, essentially, who lose their sons on a constant basis. The word is song. So on the count of 3, can we all say song collectively? I've been to enough. I went to one black box. I say everyone with the rhythm. So don't let me down on the count of 3 and say song. If I hear one off thing, don't make me feel like I'm in the UK automatically. Don't embarrass me right now. Now I'm playing. So it's song, yeah? On the count of 3, 1, 2, 3. Song. And I will ask you just to follow the feeling as to where you think the line is going, and then just go with song. And I raise my hand to where we go. Insert mother, a ghazal. Sing me something. Sing me something. A sun rising above a tower block. A song. On mornings, watching him stretch before my eyes. A magical song. Day 7. My body, now numb, has turned its back on me. If this is morning, I want his spirit here to sing us a farewell song. Pastor, how dost thou forgive? Each exhale stains this house. I am sinning in my grief. Congregation, bless me, song. So much food in a house left untouched that will rot. Here, nothing is staying. My boy is on the news, his face at graduation when we sang a song. Earlier years, each step was like water crashing on rocks. We watched him grow, 2 stepping the ghouls away in song. Hold me, hold me. Stay as if it was summer, when love was our biggest risk. Lover, permit me a night to be willing to arc my back in song. Policeman, though I speak, I cannot hear myself. He was never in a gang. Listen to me, please, you stubborn song. The fridge, it hums sadness. The light is faulty. The silence is unbearable. House, perhaps some meaning lies in this. Some. No, baby boy. He didn't leave because you finished all the jam in the bottle. Listen, baby boy. Lightning struck and up shot a beanstalk to the heaven, a distracting. The spirit, it never dies. And every day I search. Can he feel me, Yomi? Crying, praying, singing him a. Thank you.
We have time for one question. Make it a good one. Make it a good one. Anybody has a question? Yes, go ahead, please.
Hi, y'all. It's not really a question, it's a statement. When the two of you began with that poem in Yoruba and the humming, that touched me so much. I have never heard Yoruba, but it felt familiar. And I thank you for that, because that just takes me and all of us back to our roots.
But I'm just to add to this, it's a very emotional thing to even speak Yoruba before you all, because it's something that is exercising that I feel like when my son is like, Dad, he's got an app, everything, and what have you, like, when we get in the show on the road, and I'm like, thank you for that. So I think there was an uncomfortability in doing it, but I felt, like I said, in being in part of this festival, there was an urgency to also do it. So I'm very thankful for that. Thank you to you all as well for that. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Please come meet them at the book signing table outside. You can ask them more questions. You can hear more of their work. You can buy the books. See you at the book signing.
I have one request before everybody go. I'm of the generation that if it's not on the ground,
It didn't happen.
so I want to prove this by doing a quick video. So there's a Yoruba word I feel is on theme. It's madele. It means I will find my way home. So because we're talking Yoruba, madele. So
Madele. Or if you want to get extra, more madele. I will.
Raul.
No. I will.
You got him. We don't have.
You got him.
We don't have much time,
Madele.
so
Right.
just give me. I don't need a mic. I have big one. So everybody, just give me a snap like this. Snap with me. Follow me. Yeah. Yeah. You ready? Sing it after me now. Madele, 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 madele. Hey. Madele, 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 madele. Sing it with me now. 3, 4. Madele, 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 madele. Madele, 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 madele.